Alrighty, a very happy Thursday, and welcome to the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin, and I hope that turned out right. I might actually go back in and pay attention to that. But today is Thursday, June 18th of 2026. I hope everyone is having themselves a good day. I'm gonna fix my microphone. There you go. That's a lot better. All right. Um, what did we just see got done seeing here? Uh Let me walk it down. I woke up this morning, got ready for a show, and I log into Riverside, which is the online studio platform that I use to produce this show. And I get this notification that there are updates that Riverside has made. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I have some time to review these updates. And so that's what I did. Oh, no. I just spent my water all over the place. No, that's not good. I am making a mess here today. I do apologize. And I got nothing to clean it up with. Well, hopefully nothing crashes. Anyways, so I sat here and I started kind of rambling through, and I noticed that you're allowed to insert your own music. And so if you guys are listening to this on a podcast, then you know that I go back into uh CapCut, I upload the audio, I then add the music pre and post, re-download it, and upload it. Now, I don't know if that's going to work. That usually works for me, and that's only available for audio. But if we are live and we could give you that overlay of photos, overlay of all that stuff, it changes a lot. And I'll tell you that. So I have yet to explore the options that Riverside has to offer. I will be doing that a little bit more this next several days and create a system where I could give you more visual aspects. I could upload videos, I could upload overlays, right? That's the TNC Sports Talk logo. I could change the layout so I could be on the side of the screen, sharing photos, highlights. And if this is something that is legit, because this is something that, if it was available, it was either available at a higher subscription level that I was not paying for, or it was available. It was very difficult to navigate through. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is that if this is something that is new, but is acceptable, then I'm excited. I can't wait to hear and to see about this, and I'm ready to go. Right. So I guess we'll see. We'll find out and we'll see. But it's a cool thing. I think, at least. I don't know about you guys. So let me know how it goes. If you guys like it, because I like to give you guys mesh content. You guys are watching me personally, one on one. I want you guys to have a really good image of what you guys are watching. All right. What's on today's agenda? We'll talk about the Reds, who came close to a sweep, but came far from achieving it. They took the series against the New York Mets. They have a travel day, and they're heading off to the Bronx to take on the Yankees. We'll talk more NBA and NFL today. We'll focus on that. Dump into WWE tomorrow's episode as we get you guys ready for a weekend worth of sports. I will not be here Monday or Tuesday. Want to let you guys know now. The wife is taking some time off of work. She's going to occupy my time. As of right now, I am not going to be here. Um, I will still be active on social media, but if anything happens, we would have to come back and talk to you guys Wednesday. So I ain't getting you guys ready for Milwaukee and Cincinnati next Monday or Tuesday. But I want to open conversations up directly towards yesterday. Okay. So I want to start the conversations off with what we learned yesterday that was announced by head coach Zach Taylor. Now, we know that the NFL is about to go on this summer hibernation where there's no contact between players and coaches for the next 5 to 6 weeks. The next time that these players and coaches are going to meet. It's going to be the beginning of preseason at the end of July. And so earlier this week, the Cincinnati Bengals, along with a lot of other football teams, have themselves mandatory practice. It's a couple of days where they just get together, spend time practicing on the field. Nothing courageous, but this is the first time that NFL teams meet all the players from all the trades, all the draft, all the coaches, the new coaches, and everything. Everybody comes together for the very first time. And so it's nothing special to talk about. It's nothing special to be a part of. But it is special for a team to build chemistry and to build relationships among each other. Now, for the Cincinnati Bengals, they have the same offense that they did a year prior. So they're already building chemistry based off of their performance last season. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Browns, Joe Burrow, welcome back Joe Flacco. But the Bengals defense has taken a huge shift change in personnel. Dexter Lawrence, Jonathan Allen, Boya Mafe, Brian Cook. And so, to me, when I hear these mandated practices before the entire team is going to go off on this hiatus spree for the next couple months, I see here and I tell myself that's a good thing. Not more so worried about if they have plays together, if, I'm worried about the chemistry. And so far, we've already heard a lot about the chemistry, especially within specific players like Dexter Lawrence. But, between Cassius Howell and, all the newcomers that's came in, whether it's a trade, a free agent signing, or even a draft, you're getting a chance to learn about each other. So this week, I really felt was important. And yesterday, Zach Taylor announces that he's canceling mandatory practice, awarding the players for high productive and drama-free offseason. The status team has accomplished the playbook and the conditioning goals. So Zach Taylor, based on off of what he's seen so far this offseason, what he's seen on Tuesday during practice, feels that the team has really worked hard to understanding the playbook, to get into physical condition, and therefore he is going to reward his team, his players, to not have to come to practice for the next 2 days. Go on, spend the next 6 weeks, and we'll meet back up during spring break or preseason, whatever you want to call it. And I immediately remind myself back in high school days. I played high school football. That's my top tier level. Wasn't any good at it. Offensive lineman, and you were felt special because when we went into high school, our head coach's philosophy was that everybody, if you weren't a freshman, selected freshmen were able to move up to JV and varsity. But once you got into JV, you played with the varsity team. You attended with the varsity team. You may have had to play 2 games one day. A lot of that counted on. And it was great because you had the best playing the best in this circumstance. I enjoyed those times where your conditioning trainer or your coach says, practice cut early, guys. Or it's a lighter walkthrough day. It's not all hands-on physical contact. I took advantage of all those days. And, look, like I said, I wasn't any good at it. I wish I went back and took it a little bit more seriously. But the bottom line is that I can understand players and coaches take advantage of the days that are being given to you for days off. But here's the contrary to that statement. This team only won 6 games last season. This team is ranked at the very bottom of the totem pole, barely was able to muster third place in the division. And I understand that there was a shift change in roster, especially on the defense. But it's not like we won a Super Bowl. It's not like we went to the playoffs and we've been at the playoffs for the past 3 years. We've sat here and had probably one of the worst seasons in the Joe Burrow era. And credit where credit is due, something that we didn't believe was going to be done this offseason was the Bengals front office making moves. And they did it. But that only gives me the sense of urgency to keep the ball rolling, to keep the foot on the gas pedal as we look to claw back to winning ourselves a division championship and going back to the Super Bowl. And so when I hear that, these players are, accomplished, they know the playbook and they are already conditioned, well, congratulations. What do you want? A pat on the back? We haven't won anything over the last 3 years. And what you want to do is to give the team an extra week of relaxation. Now, given mandatory practice isn't all that, but just having these guys around each other on a daily basis to tolerate each other, to learn about each other, I think is very important, especially when you want to rebuild mentality in the mindset of winning a division. Now, Joe Burrow did take it to the social media in an interview, and he made a pretty bold statement earlier this week. Joe Burrow takes us back to 2019, where he was playing for LSU, and he compared this current team, which we haven't seen a single second on the field, to one of his better college teams in football history. He says, and I quote, you go back to watch what I've said before, 2019 season at LSU. I feel very similar about this team. I'm so excited to get started and get moving. I wish we could ramp this up right now in training camp so we can continue to improve, because I feel like there's so much greatness that we're going to achieve this year. And you know what? I feel it too. I feel like at least what we've done on table is backed up to what we've done in this offseason has backed up to who's on the field right now. But that's where it lies at. Joe Burrow is making a bold statement, and if he's correct, it's going to be one of the best teams in the NFL that's going to be contenders, and they are going to be a threat. And I know you, just like me, we do have about, I'm going to say at least 85% confidence that this is what it is, but I have to stay real for a moment. And until I see it on the field, I can't believe a single second. And so when I look at this situation and this, bold statement to cut training camp early, let these players go. Hey, it's great. If you're wanting to build if you want to build a positive morale in a relationship between your players and your head coach, hey, Zach Taylor, you are crossing off all the check boxes you want. But even contenders today, we're talking about the Chiefs, we're talking about the Eagles, we're talking about the Bills, we're talking about the Rams. They're not taking a day off. I'm not upset. I am questioning the intentions of Zach Taylor. We haven't won anything yet, and yet we are rewarding ourselves based off of an offseason series of moves that hasn't done anything for us yet. So I'm asking myself, I'm going to be asking the question moving forward, and we are going to quickly see if this is going to bite us back in the ass. Now, look, 3 days isn't going to do a whole lot, but it's still something that is important, I feel, especially when you're in a team that has a lot riding. Zach Taylor, in my opinion, has a lot riding on this season. He may, if the Bengals have another repeat season, doesn't make it back to the playoffs, there is a good percentage that he may be replaced at the end of this season. So he, in my mind, should be doing everything he can to keep good relationships and good faiths along with the front office. And we'll see if this is one of them. Joe Burrow restructured his contract, opening up another $10 million this season for the Cincinnati Bengals. And we think it's a good deal. I think it's a good deal. And I spoke about this earlier this week, that I believe that it's important for the Bengals to invest this into the midst of the season if they shall need to go out and get a receiver, if they need to invest into another defensive lineman, and that's great and all. And I feel like that's how it's going to be used. But we look at the free agent tracker, and earlier this offseason, we've had a couple conversations about picking up defensive ends. And free agency the season's about to come to fruition. And there are still a handful of guys, probably on one hand at least, that are still available. And guys that we have mentioned and opinionated that the Bengals should acquire interest about. First of them coming in out of a top 100 free agents available. Joey Bosa comes in at 37. He's an edge rusher, former with the Buffalo Bills. I believe that we are completely stacked with our defensive line. So I don't see necessarily any reason for the Bengals to acquire about him. So I can only presume that Joey Bosa will be going to a different team this year, and I'm fine with that. We've made improvements elsewhere. But who else is available in the free agent market? Well, we got former Washington Commanders linebacker Bobby Wagner. We got New England Patriots Stephon Diggs, who's a wide receiver. We have Deebo Samuel, who's also a wide receiver. We have edge rusher Von Miller. We have edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney. We have cornerback Russell Douglas, wide receiver Keenan Allen. We also got linebacker Matt Milano as well. This is just according to the top 100. There's probably a few more out there. So over this offseason, the Cincinnati Bengals have taken a lot of efforts into adding to their defensive line, which out of the defense, that was probably the number one struggle. They've also added to the secondary, which is great to talk about. But what about your linebacker position out? I don't think we need to invest into wide receivers. Keenan Allen's upwards to 34 years old. You have Clowney, who's 33, and Miller, who's an edge, who's 37. I mean, age is kind of, we don't really need someone who's 30, 40 years old playing for us. But if you look at the top 100 who's currently still available, there's two people that I think the Bengals, or three people that I think the Bengals should at least have conversations. And if they could get them at the right price, improve just that much more with their defense. You have linebacker Matt Milano, who's 31, formerly played for the Bills. That would be an interesting one. He's down there at the bottom of the ranking. He's still in the top 100, but ranked number 91. Probably a little bit cheaper on the other end of things, which would be opposed to seeing cornerback Raciel Douglas from the Miami Dolphins. I know that we are stacked, and I think it's all going to come to how healthy players are, to be honest. But the one I circle the most comes from Bobby Wagner. Now, I get it. He's 35 years old. Probably going to want a payday, and the Bengals ain't going to be willing to pay him much of anything. But just imagine the veteranship that we can add to this Bengals organization here heading into preseason at the end of July. Now, I'm not saying Bobby Wagner is going to be in all snaps, all plays, but he provides a leadership. He provides a veteran experience alongside with Dexter Lawrence that could just do that much more work. And you think of guys like Demetrius Knight, who can probably educate himself off of Bobby Wagner. So I understand that Joe Burrow has. I understand that Joe Burrow opened up $10 million. Thank you, Joe Burrow. What would we do without you? But to be realistic here, how do we invest into that 10 million? Do we invest and hold off and pray that we need someone by week 6 or 7 and take that chance? And, that would probably be the safe move to make. Or does the Bengals go out there, if affordable, invest at least half, if not a quarter of that, into a free agent linebacker to help improve? Now, here's the conundrum to all of this, and I'll leave it off of that, right? And my mouse dies. The conundrum to all of this is that, well, if you add someone to your roster, you're going to have to get rid of somebody to the roster, right? So the Bengals are going to have to end up getting rid of somebody. Is it valued and worth the factor at what it cost? It's time for my mouse to go. All right. Well, I do love to talk about anything with Cincinnati Bengals here. And one thing we are going to talk about here is, according to CBS Sports, the Cincinnati Bengals have been mentioned in an article. So, something interesting to take note of as we head into preseason is ranking our top backup quarterbacks. There's a couple of top quarterbacks I like to also mention here, and I take notice. So the first one I want to mention is Anthony Richardson with the Indianapolis Colts. His on-field lows have been as low as any passer. When you add the significant injury history to the equation, it's fair to question if he even should be on this list. 2024, he only started 11 games. He finished 33rd in expected points added per play, only ahead of Cooper Rush, Gardner Minshew, and Will Levis. He was wildly off target at about 17% of his throws. Second worst number of the last decade. He only threw 8 touchdowns with 12 interceptions. All the indications saying that Anthony Richardson's NFL professional career is on a downslide. But he's taken a lot of pressure off of him. You have now, as a backup quarterback, to Daniel Jones, who really impressed a lot of people, and I think a lot of people expect the same performance. And if he could have the same performance, look, the Indianapolis Colts were right there in the hunt until he got hurt. Richardson's rushing ability is a major plus, especially on design quarterback runs. He's a hammer at a goal line, but even more impressive, he had 18% explosive rush rates from 2023 to 2024, third in the NFL behind Drake May and Kyle Murray. And so I think if you have Anthony Richardson take a step back and just focus on his simplicity, I feel like he's a suitable backup quarterback. And I don't know if he ever would convert back into a starting pitcher or starting quarterback, but at least a good backup quarterback. Andy Dalton with the Philadelphia Eagles, who the Eagles traded for back in March. It came to indication that seems like the Eagles are moving on from Tanner McNee in Philadelphia. They also selected Cole Payton in the 5th round a month later in the draft. Andy Dalton, I feel, maybe he is not a starting quarterback right now. Maybe he is a back of the end of the year quarterback. But Andy Dalton, just through his time with Cincinnati, I still think is a really good tool to have, a good arsenal to have as an option on a team. Now we know that. What about the New York Giants, Jameis Winston? He's far from being perfect, but we ask if he can deliver the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, often in the same game. Last year, Winston was 8.4 net yards per attempt, was second among 57 quarterbacks with at least 50 dropbacks. Only Drake May was better. Winston EPA per play ranked 4th. His explosive play rate his first. Yes, it is a tiny sample size, but it gets the points. Jameis Winston is another quarterback, in my opinion. And now with John Harbaugh behind the realm in New York, having him as a backup, you have an opportunity to avoid a disaster if your starting quarterback goes out. What about the Washington Commanders' Marcus Mariota? 54 players took at least 200 dropbacks last season, for the past 2 seasons. Among those 54, Marcus Mariota is the 10th in the net yards per attempt, ahead of Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, and even Justin Herbert. 15th in EPA per play, one spot behind Prescott, and is ahead of Herbert and Sam Darnold. 13th in touchdown rate, ahead of starter Jaden Daniels. And he's also 8th in first down per attempts, ahead of Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Jordan Love, and Patrick Mahomes. Throwing into this list has to be our very own Joe Flacco with the Cincinnati Bengals. I honestly feel like Flacco still has what it takes. I think he has to have that complete. And if you have a good defense, then I think he's a solid quarterback. At least he outbeat Jake Browning last season. Week 6 through 12 as a Bengals starter, Flacco ranked 8th out of 33 qualified quarterbacks in expected points added per play. He threw for 13 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions, had the 3rd lowest navigative play rate thanks to the low sack rate as well. Just only imagine if Joe Burrow was there. I don't know any other backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals that would be a better fit than Joe Flacco if Joe Burrow gets injured this season. especially now with a defense that has the vast potential of doing anything they want. Well, at least entering the season as a backup quarterback looks like for Kirk Cousins. Fernando Mendoza. He remains there as a to be dated question if and when he's going to start. But there's a lot of anticipation coming in for him. And then for the 49ers is Mac Jones. The proof is in the pudding. Another player whose situation plays a major role in his ranking. Jones went 5 for 3 through 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. The best ratio of his career, average career best 7.4 yards per attempt in his first year with the 49ers. He kept things afloat and then some with Brock Purdy battling injuries. Jones is a smart and extremely accurate. While he sometimes believed his arm is a little bit too much, he knew where his bread was buttered. He targeted running backs at a 30% clip last year, the highest in the NFL. Jones doesn't produce explosive plays or scrambles, which is his two biggest differential factors away from Brock Purdy. Sometimes you got to have the complete opposite. So I ask of you, something you can let me know down in the comments below, is who is your favoriteable top backup quarterback heading into this season? Another conversation. I love talking about the Bengals here in this run, but another article on CBS Sports talks about the best and worst scenarios from each and every team. Now, we only focus on the AFC North at this moment. Maybe eventually we'll get to the rest of the teams. But I want to go ahead and review that. Baltimore Ravens, best case as the arrival of Jesse Minter as head coach does exactly what the Ravens brass hoped it would fix, the defense. With Minter reestablishing Baltimore's DNA on the side of the ball, the organization dominates the conference, leading the AFC North title to a number 1 seed. Lamar Jackson stays healthy and finally gets over his hump to win a Super Bowl. That's a very big, bold prediction. The worst case scenario for Baltimore here is Baltimore's defense doesn't make the strides it hopes to under Minter. Obviously, they added Trey Hendrickson, the team's offensive prize, to bolster the pass rush, looking like players last year at the prime of age 31. And coming off of a season-ending hip injury in 2025, Derrick Henry finally starts to show cracks, lowering his offensive ceiling. That leads to the Ravens missing the playoffs for a second straight year. So, does bringing in Jesse Minter and moving on from John Harbaugh fix the problem? Does signing the early on talk of Trey Hendrickson, despite his season-ending hip injury last year, is that going to affect the outcome of the Ravens? And I think those are really two big questions. We're going to jump to the Bengals for last. What about the Cleveland Browns? Best case scenario between the quarterback battle of Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders ends with Sanders on top. Not only does Sanders win week 1 job, but the second-year signed collar runs with and gives Cleveland a long-term answer at quarterback, something the Browns have not seen in many years. Sanders and first-year coach Todd Monken begin building a strong foundation that changes the atmosphere in Cleveland going forward. Suddenly, the Browns can be a stellar young core with 24-year-old quarterback at the center of it. You have a young offensive team. It needs to be thrived and given to a young quarterback. As much as you'd probably want Deshaun Watson and to get his money valued out of the situation, to be honest, you've moved on past him. The worst case scenario is that Watson does win the job over, but neither puts together a awe-inspiring training camp. Monken leans towards the veteran, but Watson continues to look like a veteran he is throughout the time in Cleveland. Results is the Browns finishing last in the AFC North and owning one of the worst records in the NFL, leading to Munkins being one and done. So it's simple for Cleveland. You invest all into Shedeur Sanders, which makes perfect sense to the young offense, or you let Watson walk right in from all the dilemmas and just having those issues, and they don't gain anything. They have another repeat. I also want to then let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't want to. Let's get to it. Aaron Rodgers has enough fuel in his tank to make another push to a second straight AFC North title. The 42-year-old reunites with coach Mike McCarthy, and they pick up where they left off in Green Bay, putting together an impressive numbers, especially now that Pittsburgh has a legitimate number 2 option in passing game in Michael Pittman Jr., complementing DK Metcalf. If this is Aaron Rodgers' final year, he's going to give it everything he has with no excuses on the table. We believe that Pittsburgh has probably one of the most dangerous arsenals at wide receiver range with Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf. And with the veteran Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy reuniting, anything is possible. The worst case scenario is that Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old. He's ready to retire. He has one foot out the door. Pittsburgh's roster looks too old and less explosive than some of the division rivals. Steelers are left in the dust by both the Ravens and the Bengals and are on the outside looking in on a playoff spot. And they will give the Steelers their first under 500 football season in over 20 years. So this far, right, Baltimore claims best case scenario is that Jesse Minter fixes the defense, has an explosive outcome, and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense can thrive where they thrive, the best. The worst case, defense doesn't hold up. Trey Hendrickson is a bust. And if you're a Bengals fan, you want that to happen, right? For Cleveland, the best case is Shedeur Sanders, young quarterback to a young offense. The worst case is that Shedeur does not mount to anything. You have to refer back to Hopkins, DeAndre, and now you're back at the drawing boards. Who's your future quarterback? And for the Steelers, you hope that the pairing with Mike McCarthy with Aaron Rodgers is the solution, along with the 2 number 1s and number 2 wide receivers. Well, he's 40 years old. He's going to be retiring this year. It's either he goes all out or it's a season to forget about. For the Cincinnati Bengals, well, look, they've done a big advantage turning things around defensively. Dexter Lawrence, Boya Mafe, you got Miles Murphy, Shamar Stewart. There's a lot of offensive line greatness, along with Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Reminds me a lot right now of the Steelers. The worst case scenario is Burrow, Chase, or Higgins misses time this season. The conundrum is that the Bengals need that number 1, number 2 slot in there every game. They also need Joe Burrow behind the realm. Because even with Joe Flacco and a better defense, who knows if the Bengals are just that good. Hopefully that's something we could take a look at in the preseason games. But if any 3 of those players we mentioned, Burrow, Chase, or Higgins, misses time yet, it's going to impact. So this is where the question lies, as Joe Burrow allowed the Bengals to make $10 million in open cap space. How do they decide to use it? And is it used wisely? Those are my best and worst case scenarios for the AFC North. There's a lot more where that came from. You can check out the article written by Tyler Sullivan on CBSSports.com. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals came up short yesterday in a potential sweep over the New York Mets. They lost final score 9-1 Nick Lodolo probably had one of his worst outings thus far this season, only going 4 and 2/3 of an inning. He gave up 11 hits, 2 runs. But I think the only thing you could really take away from this is that the Reds only relied on 2 pitchers because Chris Paddock came in out of the bullpen and finished the game going 4 and 1/3 inning. He only gave him up 4 hits and 2 runs. And on a travel day, it almost felt like a bullpen day, no? Okay. So really, what was your expectation on the Reds winning the game and taking the sweep? I may remain optimistic about that. I want to find that one it factor that really turns things around. But at least they won a series. Let me remind you, they haven't won a series in the last 6 series. And the last series they won was back at the end of May, where they were at City Field in Flushing, New York, against the Mets. If that says anything. So this is the first series win facing the Mets since May. They are 4-2 since they went over to New York earlier this year, and now they finished the series here, which is a positive thing. Now, the conversation I have here relying on this is that this is a series where if playoffs end today, both teams had the same record, the Reds will have the advantage because they are 4-2. This is the only series, both home and away, that on the National League that that Cincinnati Reds has finished. I think the only American League team that the Cincinnati Reds have to finish both home and away is the Cleveland Guardians. All the other teams are either a series home or a series on the road. So this is the first completed series in the National League. So you look at this. We've still yet to face the Dodgers. We still got to go to Arizona. We still got to go to Colorado. We still got to go to San Francisco. The Padres still got to come here. The Phillies got to come here, which they're going to come to here soon, a couple weeks. Miami still has to come here. We still got to go out to Washington, and we still got to go out to Atlanta. And then, obviously, we have yet to face the Milwaukee Brewers, which, by the way, that's next week. So, if you look at any good news, right? We talked about the expectations of these Reds. Its focus point is one, getting back to 500, winning each ball game, winning each series that is put in front of us, and then getting back to 500. I can't even begin to have the conversation to battle and contend for the NL Central Division until we're 500 again, right? So the first things first, let's shorten our expectations down and have smaller goals that we can easily accomplish before expanding that. Maybe that is one of the biggest issues we have heading into this season is that we had such a big expectation for these Reds, thinking that they are contenders, and yet they're not, realistically. So smaller expectations, one game at a time, getting back to 500, and maybe then we can focus on where the wild card looks like. As of right now, and I know we're only June 18th here, we're just 3 games back in the wild card, which isn't bad, right? A series can change that entire dynamic. But to think that we're going to challenge Milwaukee, in order to even think about that conversation, both Cincinnati needs to have a repeat of what we did back in April, possibly even 2 months of that, with 2 months of what Milwaukee did back in April. And that's just to focus on Milwaukee. Let's not forget to mention that St. Louis, Chicago, and Pittsburgh all needs to fit somewhere in between. So the Reds have a travel day. They're going down to the Bronx. They're going to be, again, a 3-game series against New York. We play well against New York. So I'm remain optimistic about a good series outcome. But that's all we can focus on. I think it helps when we threw two pitchers out there, took a little ease off the bullpen. I'm not expecting Paddock. I'm not expecting Lodolo to pitch next series. I'm not expecting Paddock to at least pitch Friday, maybe even Saturday, which could help this ball club out. The Mets begin a 3-game series against Philadelphia with Friday being off. So they have a game tonight, a game Saturday, and a game Sunday. And I mentioned that specifically. If you are a Mets fan, if you're a Philadelphia fan, or if you're a baseball fan, you know that, just so that you know that the reason they don't play on Friday night is because of the Brazil and Haiti soccer matchup, which is taking place at the Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, so that it doesn't cross paths with, the FIFA World Cup hosting. And another game this weekend as the Cardinals begin a 3-game series against Kansas City tonight with Saturday off. So they'll play tonight, they'll play tomorrow, they'll have Saturday off. And that's because of the same thing at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium as Ecuador takes on, is it Caraccio? Am I saying that correctly? So that is what the upcoming schedule looks like. We'll take a look at the National League Central lookout. The Padres avoided a sweep, beating the Cardinals 6-1 yesterday. Milwaukee beat the Guardians 9-4. The Cubs beat the Rockies 8-6, and the Pirates beat the Athletics 12-1. So, other than the Cardinals and Reds, the National League Central teams have thrived in victories yesterday. Tonight in the NL Central, the Guardians and Milwaukee will do battle first pitch at 7:10, and the Guardians and the Royals will begin their series at 7:40. Over in the College World Series matchups, yesterday North Carolina beat West Virginia 12-7. Oklahoma beat Georgia 11-4. And now we have the showdown, which is scheduled for this weekend. Their first matchup is set for Saturday, June 20th. First pitch at 8 p.m., available on ESPN. North Carolina takes on Oklahoma. North Carolina will be at home. And on Saturday, in Game 2 at June 21st, which is actually Sunday, Father's Day, at 2:30 p.m. on ABC, North Carolina takes on Oklahoma. It's a best-of-3 game series, so these are the only 2 games that are guaranteed to play. If there's a Game 3, it will be held on Monday. But by the end of this weekend, by Monday, we should know who the College World Series champions are. And I just texted a friend this morning. He's a big Tar Heels guy. And I'm like, man, Tar Heels are in the World Baseball, not the World Baseball, but the College World Series. And I thought, man, isn't their baseball team doing something incredible? And when I think of the North Carolina Tar Heels, it's more of they're just good in basketball, right? Well, now they just need their football to tag right along. So we transition into the FIFA World Cup. Give you updates of what's going on yesterday. Austria beat Jordan 3-1. Portugal and Dominican Republic Congo tied at 1 apiece. England beat, Croatia 4-2. So sorry if I mispronounced these countries here. And Ghana beats Panama 1-0. And then Colombia beats Uzbekistan 3-1. Today, FIFA World Cup action continues on Fox as a triple header. What took place about 53 minutes ago, Czechia takes on South Africa. Later on at 3, we'll see Switzerland takes on Bosnia. And at 9 p.m., we'll see Mexico take on Korea Republic, all available on Fox. On FS1, at 6 p.m., we'll see Canada take on Qatar. And Team USA will be playing tomorrow. Keep you up to date and all that fun stuff. Before we get into our last topic, maybe this will be a last topic, depending how it goes. MLB has once again changed the world or change the format of this year's Home Run Derby. And they are officially eliminating the clock to the Derby and going back to the swing-based format. This is according to the Athletics. MLB has not announced the change yet, but is scheduled to on Monday, July 13th at Citizens Bank Park. Home Run Derby expectation. Here is the new format that we're expected to see this year. In the first round, we're expected to see 8 players take 20 swings. If they homer on the 20th swing, they can continue swinging until they make an out. Ties broken by longest home run distance. Top 4 home runs total advance. Those 4 players are seeded 1 through 4 based off of their home run totals. Okay, so 8 players will take 20 swings. If on your 20th swing you hit a home run, you continue to go until you get an out, right? You don't hit a home run. If there are ties, let's say 2 players tie at 15, well, the person who has the longest home run distance will have that upper field advantage. And then the final 4 players will be seeded 1 through 4 in their total compared to in the seeding bracket. Because in the second round, it's head-to-head matchups. 1 will take on 4, 2 will take on 3. The 4 players will take 15 swings each. If they homer in their 15th run, just like the 20th in the first round, they continue to hit until they record it out. The tiebreaker will go down to extra 3 swings until there's 2 winners. The final will have 15 swings. If a homer on their 15th swing, they continue until they record it out. And the same thing, 3 extra swings for a tie. So over the years, we've seen the number of swings. We've seen a time clock manage. And the whole dynamic is to see and to watch this, MLB wants people to tune into the Home Run Derby. The problem that you have with it is it could go on for 3, 4, even 5 hours, especially when there's no limit to it. Now, I don't know. Is 20 swings good? The reason why they went to the clock is because pitch batters weren't swinging. It used to be, well, just, hey, record 3 outs, and then you have a guy like King Griffey Jr. coming to the plate, and he's hitting 15 consecutive home runs without recording an out, and his at-bat's 45 minutes later. So we're trying to change it. So we changed it by putting a time on it. I think it was first 4 minutes, then it moved down to 3. Then if you hit 2 over a certain much, you get the bonus swing. Now it's back down to a number of swings. So you get 20 swings. It's not 20 pitches, 20 swings. So if you see a pitch outside, you don't swing at it, it doesn't count against you. Within those 20 swings, how many you hit home runs are great. And then, if you have that on the 20th swing, you hit a home run, and there you go. You get more swings. I'm interested to see how long that will quicken the game. Because within the first hour, let's be honest, all 8 batters should have gone through their round in the first round. So they say 20 swings. I wonder why they have to put more swings. Why can't 8 batters have 10 swings? And if you have 10 home runs, you have 10 home runs. Why 20? I feel like 10 for 8 for the number keeps it going, keeps the number going. If you're number 1 and you're first up, you're getting, you're going to have to wait 20 pitches at least, if not more. And then you have to wait that times that by 7. So you're possibly waiting about an hour, maybe more than that. I would want to get through round 1 as quickly as possible. And then open it up for the second and third rounds when they're smaller. So I don't know. I mean, I'm opposed to seeing what this looks like and how it resonates to what, to fasten the game. But at the same time, I'm also skeptic about, well, is there a better format? Honestly, it's not about how, hey, can someone hit 40 plus home runs? It's about who's your home run leader. Now, to me, I'll tell you this, I am a huge fan of what they did back in the day. Um, Let me actually try to pull it up here before we end our show. I'm trying to look it up here. Apologize. So in the 1960s, there was a syndical television show called Home Run Derby. Featured two top baseball sluggers facing off in a 9-inning contest. The winner received $2,000 prize advance to face a new challenger the following week. It was a 26-episode series hosted by Mark Scott, was filmed at Wrigley Field at Wrigley Field in Los Angeles and featured 9 Hall of Fame players. Included guys like Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, Stan Musial, Harmon Killebrew, and Ernie Banks. Okay. You can watch this on YouTube. So that dynamic is that they picked a stadium, it was empty. They got on, and I believe they have like 3 pitches. You hit a home run. And that was the inning. And that was it. You moved on to the next round, you add up your home runs. I would like a format where it's very simple. You already know you're representing because you're a slugger. I don't need you to hit 40 plus home runs in one night. For me, after like 3 home runs, that's just all it is. So I don't know. That is just me. But I kind of wish that Major League Baseball will really simplify it. Because I feel like that takes away from everything that they're trying to do. All right. Well, that is all the time I have for you guys today. We'll be back again tomorrow to touch base with our weekend sports, get you guys ready for everything that's going on. Want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Please have those notifications on if you miss any single episode. You can also follow us on our Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram page. And don't forget to dive in and take us on the road with you by listening to us on your audio podcast, wherever you get your audio needs at, podcasting needs at. We're on there at the TNC Sports Talk. We'll be back again tomorrow from noon to 1. Thank you guys for tuning into the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.